1992. And since then we've had an appointed one, and I won't say whether we're wise in keeping the appointed ones and not having the elected one, but I will say this: I've learned a lot from having been the elected Superintendent of Education. But the most important thing I wanted to do tonight, other than sing my old Kentucky home for you, is I wanted to go around the room and ask each of you, a lot of you as I know personally and have known for the years, as 81 years old, I'm still hanging in there. And so if you would tell me, going around the room so I can post it on Facebook and YouTube, because I want people to know the Boone County Businessmen's Association is an active group of hardworking businessmen in the county, and they represent people from all over northern Kentucky, what's known as the Golden Triangle. I always talk about it a lot. I learned that name from my former boss, Congressman John Breckinridge, when he called it the Golden Triangle of northern Kentucky, Fayette County, Jefferson County, Fayette, Lexington, and Louisville. But most of all, of northern Kentucky and greater Cincinnati, because we are a big part of the economic drive of this whole Commonwealth of Kentucky. And our business people are the most important people and groups of people in that area. So start right here with this young man who's known me for probably 30 years, and tell us your name and the business you're in.
I'm Michael Sparks. I don't have a business at this time.
Well, you don't have
I was in trucking for years.
years, okay. And your wife's name is Brenda, right?
Right.
See, I got a pretty good memory after all, don't I? And next to you is
Gary Jett. In my business, I was a maintenance man.
maintenance man, and right here we have,
Dick Davis.
and what kind of business, Dick?
I'm out of business.
Out of it, okay, well,
I'm old.
you're old. Well, at 81, I guess I'm old too. And down next door to you,
Don Davis. I was former county commissioner, and then I got promoted to being a used car salesman at 3 car lots.
fantastic, praise the Lord.
Promotion.
And our president here tonight,
Dave Schneider. I'm with Heritage Bank and also City of Florence City Council.
fantastic. And next to you is
Donnie Martin, I'm with Shepherd Insurance here in Florence.
Shepherd Insurance here in Florence.
I'm Gary Wynn. I'm with the City of Florence on the City Council.
City Council, a great city council.
Thank you.
A great city council. And young lady,
I'm Kathy Rubin, Boone County Schools.
Boone County Schools, Kathy Rubin, and a great worker there for all the students at Boone County High School and all the schools in Boone County. And next to you is one of my favorite people. He's keeping me alive, you know that. That's Bill DeAndrea, and he keeps me alive. You know, I've been a real estate broker for 52 years, and they named me Realtor Emeritus of America. And I said, goodness gracious, I must be really getting old. I'm going to retire. Bill says, don't retire. He said, just come on and send me some business. Is that right, Bill?
That's right.
Bill
I
DeAndrea.
help John out as much as I can.
She keeps me alive, Mr. Superintendent down here. And come right here.
Mike Sharon, retired.
Retired, and this young lady here, I saw her working around here with the TV channels and the stations. What's your name?
Barbara Brady, Boone County Schools.
Barbara Brady, Boone County Schools. You must have something to do with technology then.
Everything.
Everything.
Marketing,
Communications, you name it, you're doing it.
All trades.
Well, I appreciate that today. In today's world, we need that, don't we? Well, and I'm John Stephenson. I already told you a little bit about me, but the smartest move I ever made was my wife, June Guyman Stephenson. Now, she happens to be from Campbell County, but every time you turn a rock over in Campbell County, you find another Guyman diamond. She was one of 9 children. So I did well when I married her. I thought, boy, just think of the boat she could get. Well, God bless you, and I look forward to your meeting starting, and I get a chance to sing my old Kentucky home for you. I have sung it in every county in the state of Kentucky. If you haven't been out on my YouTube site, it's called Travels with Dr. John Stephenson. You can see the history of all 120 counties and the overall history by Dr. Thomas Clark, who was a great historian and my teacher, believe it or not, many years ago at the University of Kentucky. I'm so thrilled that we have the Northern Kentucky University, and I was proud to be one of the people that started that with over 3,000 signatures gathered when I was president of student government in 1968, and Phil King, the state representative in Kenton County, and the Boone County folks and the Campbell County folks, Art Schmidt, with Governor Louis Nunn, signed the first authorization for the 4-year college to start. And I was proud to be a part of that, gathering 3,000 signatures. God bless you all, and I look forward to being called upon to sing my old Kentucky home, and now I'll sit down and behave myself. And I'll turn the camera off for right now.
For the general meeting for the Boone County Businessmens Association. We'll start with a prayer, and I understand Donnie Martin's going to bless us with prayer.
Lord, we thank you for this meal and the opportunity to gather together. May this food nourish our bodies and our minds, and may our conversations be forthcoming and doing God's work in our community. We pray for a productive meeting, hope that we can help people out through our gathering and our coming together. And we hope for a healthy way home this evening, and little the storm department. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
If everybody would stand. I believe we're going to have veterans. I have the veterans start the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And should we remain standing for the singing of Old Kentucky Home?
Mr. Superintendent, hold on to that for a second.
Is that me filming?
All you gotta do is point it out, it's already running. I sing this song from my heart because Happy Chandler poked me on the chest. He came up to Northern Kentucky University and I said, "Sir, teach me how to sing this song, My Old Kentucky Home." And he said, "Son," that knocked me down. He said, "Son, I'll teach you how to sing it, but you gotta sing it from your heart." Well, you're gonna get it today from my heart, because that's the only way I can sing it. And just remember this: red, yellow, brown, black, or white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. All of us. And it goes like this. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play. The corn tops ripe and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Now, before I sing the last verse, let me remind you of something that Billy Graham taught me many years ago in George Beverly Shea, down in 1956 in Louisville, Kentucky. Taken down there by 4 deacons, Walter Roden, John Grizel, Vernon Likens, and Carl Covey, Brother Kerger and his wife Polly, and Reverend Foley. You might remember some of those names. They took us down there on an old rickety church bus, and there I met Billy Graham for the first time. My best friend was out in the audience, and I didn't even know it, and you know what he was? Some of you might remember the name, Gil Hammond. He was a teacher at Beechwood High School for 10 years in science and chemistry, and he became later the UniServe director for the Kentucky Education Association, and was probably responsible for me receiving the award as the outstanding, not teacher in the state, but the outstanding citizen in the state promoting public education. I was very proud to get that from Kentucky Education Association. Billy Graham taught me the lesson of my little sister Judy when we gave our lives to the Lord. He poked me on the chest and he said, "Johnny, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict. It's God's job to judge. It's your job, my job, Judy's job to love." And that's what I've tried to give, is love to everybody I've come across in my life. And the rest of the song goes like this. Oh, the children roll on a little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by hard times comes a knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home says goodnight. Weep, join in with me now. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. For my old Kentucky home, far, far, far away. God bless America, God bless Kentucky, and God bless Boone County Business Association and our new superintendent in Boone County Schools. Praise the Lord and bless the
Praise the
ammunition.
Lord. I love it.
And thank you, Bill DeAndrea, for inviting me.
I think that may be a first. We can chalk that up. We now have Old Kentucky home here at our meeting. So perfect. Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for sharing your talent and your time. Appreciate it. Bill, I'll let you take over from here and introduce our guest speaker.
Well, you know, I've gone through 3 superintendents at Boone County Schools that I know. But this last one that I invited to the meeting today, I was so impressed with at Potter's Ranch that he was out there for the kids, getting their dishes. What else? You want some more chicken nuggets? You want this? He was busting the tables. Other 2 superintendents not taking, I love them both, but they just sat down. So with that, I have asked Bob if we could have a guest, have him, the superintendent of Boone County School System, come and talk, and she have definitely set it up, and it's my honor to, I'm gonna mess it up, Jeff Housewall.
I know, it's perfect.
Okay.
Exactly right. Perfect. I appreciate that. I don't know. I'll stand just out of respect, but I don't want to lecture. So no, I just don't want to lecture. I feel like I don't want to be. But it's hard to follow. I mean, a former superintendent, state superintendent that can sing the state song with that sort of not only love and passion, but with that deep, is that baritone voice? What do you?
Baritone?
Yeah, so I'm not even going to try. I don't know that I want to follow. I feel like, especially as you wax so poetically about the state, the importance of education, I feel like my work is done here. So I don't know what to say. I'll tell you a story, because I got a lot of stories. A few stories, not as many as you. But so I grew up in southern Indiana, near the banks of the Ohio River. And so I have been a Hoosier the first 50 years of my life. So I'm 1 year as a proud Kentuckian. But I'm proud. So I didn't say Wildcat. I said Kentuckian. There's a difference in my book. But if, I was a Hoosier, like both the mascot and the state. Whereas here, you Kentuckians and Wildcats, and I feel like I could be one before the other, maybe. So we'll see. But yeah, and then I've always loved, I think Stephen Foster wrote maybe 3 state songs, right? So I know one of them is here. And, we have my back home in Indiana, which is a little more of a jazzy version. It's nothing. I told Cassie, I said, when I interviewed for the job, she said, well, how are you going to prepare? I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to tell who I am. And I'm going to listen and interview them and see if it's a good fit. But I said, if it is, I said, they got a better state song. They do. They got a better state song. And I said, they've got the rolling hills. They've got a place that deeply loves the outdoors. And it's steeped in traditions in Kentucky. And I said, and that's important. And you spoke to those, and it is. I can kind of sing back home in Indiana, but it's different. It has a different feel. I remember when, growing up in southern Indiana, I can remember they had a little town square. I grew up in Corydon on a farm. They had a little town square with a little gazebo, and they'd have bands on Friday nights. And sometimes I remember that there would be a hello. Now I got a feet of 45 when my bosses is here. So I remember that they would be sometimes they played bluegrass, and when they played bluegrass, and I've always loved bluegrass, they would play My Old Kentucky Home, and they'd say, if we're a bluegrass band, we always play My Old Kentucky Home last, and if you're from Kentucky, you need to stand. And so even then I thought, one of these days I'm going to make it south or actually I guess I moved northeast to Kentucky, but nonetheless, it's a blessing to be in Kentucky and to be part of your group, and really just the profound appreciation people in Kentucky have for public education, and the importance it plays in this state is something to be noted and really respected. So I want this to be a conversation. If you have questions, far be it from me. I don't want to lecture. I do have a few updates of things that we're doing, but a conversation is better. Barb said 2 hours, but give 10 minutes for questions. I don't know if that's true, or if I misheard that. 3 hours. Oh, thank you. I got another hour.
There is no time.
No, I will not just droll on forever. So I've been working on, they say that when you have the opportunity to serve a new community, you don't bring a blueprint, right? You don't come with solutions. You come with an open mind. You really spend a lot of time engaging with people, board staff, families, students, and then you come to understand the challenges and the opportunities, and then you create a blueprint. We may have a toolkit and strategies and solutions, things that I've done before, things I've never done before, but you're really just bringing with you a process. And so every place looks different, every place is unique, and I think that's really important. And so I've really spent the first 6 to 9 months, I feel, listening and really getting a good pulse for what we are. And that's important, because not only do you learn the challenges, you also know what we do well, and you don't mess it up, right? Don't get in the way. Don't make it worse. And so you come to identify what are the things that we need to improve on. You really work in collaboration with the board and with your district staff. I mean, I'm like this middleman, right? I got the board, and I got my cabinet and principals, and that's kind of the world I live in. But I feel as though we're getting to a place now where it's time to say, well, what have we done, right? And what have we done this year, and how is it going to look different next year? Because we also know that while it's very important to be in that feedback loop, at some point that has to result in action. It has to result in doing something. Oh, I just went. Of course, right when I go look at the PowerPoint.
I didn't do it.
Was it you? Well, I can bust the tables one way. Right? So, and HDMI 2, I'm not sure. There it is. So anyway, I can tell you what I was going to tell you. So, I am not a golfer. So I have golfed on occasion.
That's a good picture.
Yeah, I've golfed on occasion, but I'm not a golfer. My farm, growing up, was next to a golf course. So there you go. That's my connection. So
One thing I would like to say, we as Business Association appreciated you being there last year.
oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. Great event, and I'll be there again. I'll make sure I get on my schedule. It was a great event, and I will say that I had the opportunity to speak for a lot of groups. But what I'll say is that you are such an important organization because of your commitment to giving back to the community and to our students. It makes a difference. What you do and the work you do and how you raise money, but most importantly, how you spend that money, it shows that, kind of back to your point, and how important our children are. And you show them with love, and you do that with the way you take care of them and you give back to them. And it was such Kathy said when I first came, don't miss Potter's Ranch. It's one of the best nights. You're going to love it. And she was right. And I did. So, let me give you a few updates. Interrupt, ask questions, whatever you need to know. I'm working on a comprehensive community update at the May board meeting. It's going to have, I've identified 18 major accomplishments that we've done this year. So we're going to highlight those. We're going to talk about some of the why, create that public record. I just pulled a few of them out tonight. We're not going to go through all of them. But the reality is the state kind of wants you to do a capstone, and that seems a bit, I don't know. I feel like we should just say this is what we did and just focus on that and focus on our accomplishments. I do have a couple introductory slides. You know who we are. We're pretty much in the blue area. Interestingly, I thought you'd find that we are pushing 21,000 students, and we know that we expect to hit that in the next year or two, especially as we expand pre-K. Some of those numbers aren't in there. Our reach is much broader than just K-12, but 20,600 students. We're the third largest school district in Kentucky, behind, of course, Jefferson and Fayette. Our general fund budget, these are business folks, right? So $293 million. So that's our annual budget, pushing $300 million. So it's quite a responsibility. We really look at our operations in two ways, and we're starting to redo the org chart a little bit and clarify it. We have our learning side, and then we have our safety and operations side. They have to go hand in hand, right? We can't. If we have safe schools with no learning, we have prisons. If we have learning with no safe schools, heaven help us. So that's really how we're clearly dividing this up. We're about the fifth largest employer at MKY. We have 3,700 employees. And then when you look at our students, how it breaks down, I won't read all those to you. We're pushing on 50% free and reduced lunch, 2,000 English learners. That's important. I'll come back to that a little bit later on. So, and also we are one of the highest, if not the highest performing large district in Kentucky. We was recently, a national article was picked up a lot of local news sources. We are the only state in Kentucky that is now performing at a level higher than we were before COVID. So at Boone County, we have basically eliminated all learning loss, and we have accelerated learning from 2019 to 2025. We're the only district in Kentucky that has done that. I've shared with you a few of our graduation rates as 96%. That's important. Our ACT average composite is 19.4. And we continue to see significant growth in language arts and math. So we're performing, and we're performing efficiently. And I'm going to talk about what that means as a taxpayer and as a business person in our results. But the most important data I'll probably point out to you is that for every dollar that's invested in public education, the return on the investment is estimated to be $20. But the other statistic we want to look at is graduation rates. Because for every student that doesn't graduate, the cost to the community is significant, right? It is significant. It can be school to the prison pipeline. It can be the cost for community services. So one of the largest costs communities face are from dropouts. And so the reality is that we're getting a strong majority, one of the highest in the state across the finish line. And we're proud of that. So we have a strategic plan, and it's a little bit of a framework. So world-class education is the learning piece. Empowered workforce is about what we're doing for our staff. Stakeholder engagement and operations and resource optimization. So I'm just going to pick a few quick things here and then ask away. If you have questions as we go, interrupt me, please. I love it. More of a conversation. If not, I'm going to have Karen ask me questions throughout so that somebody is at, because she doesn't mind doing it. That's what I've been told.
No, not at all.
What? So I once knew a shy person. It was not Karen. Okay. So most importantly, when it comes to world-class education and really advancing it, something that I have learned that we are really tackling this year is that we did not really have a system. We had a system of schools, not a school system. And that's significant, and you could say, what is all this gobbledygook up here? The reality is we just created a timeline by which we are going to teach the same curriculum in math and language arts. It doesn't seem like rocket science to me, but we had any times upward of 10 different curricula we would use for language arts and 8 for math. And the problem with that is we know that we have mobility intra-school between our schools. We have students moving. And when they move from one school to another, and we're teaching a completely different way, completely different order of things, we have a much more learning loss. And so because our students, we may have students visiting, attending 3 or 4 schools in a year, there's just some basic things we're trying to make uniform as a system. It also saves us a lot of money because we have purchasing power. So imagine that the student that attends 4 elementary schools in a year, the taxpayers and the school district has to pay more than $100 for each of those language arts, right? They're only using one of them at a time. The reality is when they move, we have to provide them the new resource. So if we have a shared resources, it really makes us more efficient, saves money. And it's not just about that. Let's be clear. It is important that we are good fiscal stewards, but more important is that we're creating learning structures for all of our students so that when they go from one school to another, they're like, oh my gosh, where am I? There's some things we can't control, right, when they move from Ohio to here or something like that. But nonetheless, we are making this uniform, and we've created a 4-year timeline to do that, and that's significant. Because we've never done that in Boone County. Yeah.
I just have a little question when you were talking about your reading and your math.
Yep.
Not, and maybe Kevin brought me up, called me one day and asked me a question, and I started looking into some things, and I saw where 2 of your schools, elementary schools, excelled in math.
Mm-hmm.
And I, by chance, knew the principal of one of the elementary schools. And I said, congratulations. She said, why? They just took it away from me. Made no sense to me. When they were the highest 2 schools.
In math?
In math.
Well, if you go back on I don't know if you can go backspace, we haven't, I'm not sure what that is because we haven't even adopted a common math curriculum yet. So we're just, I don't quite understand where that came from, because they all are still across the board. And what I will say though is, and please don't tell me who it was or
I'm
what
not.
school. But what I will tell you is that here's what we know to be true. The scores most closely correlate with poverty. And the lower the poverty, the higher the performance rates. And what happens is that sometimes when we switch a curriculum in a low poverty school, so a school like Man Elementary School, for example, okay, when we switch the curriculum, the scores, there's hardly any implementation there, maybe a little bit. But when we uniform the curriculum language arts in our high poverty schools, and for our students of high poverty, the scores go up significantly. So the overall effect is positive. And yes, there are growing pains, but what we know to be true is that with our lower poverty schools, our wealthier families, and our lower poverty students, families and schools, right, those changes have very minimal impact on them. What it does is, but on the flip side, it has a significant impact for our families of higher poverty. So it overall increases our scores. And so, yeah, it is. We could continue to do this. It costs more, but overall, it produces lower results. It doesn't mean that at a school like Man Elementary School, I'm just giving a name, you can pick New Haven, that it isn't, they're fine where they are. But the problem is a high poverty student that has there's chosen mobility and there's forced mobility. Chosen mobility is when your family says, oh, we're gonna select to buy a new home, we're gonna move to Forced mobility is when the students the families aren't paying the rent, they are forced to move and they move from one place to another, and they're going to all these different schools. And those are the students that we are working hard to get to not drop out of high school, so it doesn't create a burden. We're increasing that graduation rate. And when that happens, one of the easiest things to do is have certain systems pieces, right? So they're not like, oh, well, I was learning this type of math and now I'm learning something completely different. Having some basic curricula together. So you're right. I mean, the reality is doing that for a school that's already high performing is not going to, it's not going to drop their scores, but it's going to increase others. So that's kind of the counter to that. Yeah.
Are they still pushing the newer math?
No.
2 + 2 = 4?
2 + 2 = 4 today. That's right. And 4 + 4 = 9. And we're really trying to. In all seriousness, I mean, I back in the days, I was a math teacher, by the way.
What I understand, the fact that you had the process right, the fact that you got 9 out of that, you still got credit.
If you get 9 out of it, well, it depends who's evaluating me. I hope that you don't. So yeah, but I was a former math teacher. But I didn't tell you my whole story, but I always wanted to teach math, and I did, and then I got talked into going to administration. But my dad was a science teacher his whole life, and I love teaching. So all right, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to keep going because I'll stay as long as you want. So the next thing that we're doing is, this goes back, if you remember, we talked about the fact that we have 2,000 English learners in our district, so 10%. Now we have some schools in which it's much, much higher. We go into schools and do what we call a takeover. I make the cabinet, Kathy knows this, we go into a school and we alleviate the office and the principal and the counselors, and we buy them lunch, they do some training, and it just reminds them that we can do this, right? Kind of like you were talking about busting tables. I can do lunch duty. I can answer the phones at the front desk. It's good for us once a month. But you know, I was at one of our schools, and one of the it had an impact, a profound impact. Teacher came up to me, and she just looked frazzled. I said, "Bring him in." I was doing lunch duty at this elementary school, and she said, "Dr. It's challenging this year." She said, "Of my 20 students, 9 of them do not speak English, and there's 5 different languages." And she said, I can't even. I mean, they're all, no wonder they're bored. They're all over the place. It's difficult for me, and we don't have people who speak all the languages. I mean, we have languages that are coming in, like Chuckese. If you guys heard of Chuckese, it's a language that we're getting in where we really have no translators for. Chukka is the 2nd largest island in Micronesia, and they speak Chuckese. But we know that through the immersive learning experience, they are going to learn English. They're going to learn English on the playground. They're going to learn English in the cafeteria with their friends. They're going to learn English, and they're learning it. But the problem is, the 2 to 3 years it takes to learn it, there's learning loss. Because there's 3 years where they've not learned math, or social studies, or science. I mean, social studies is basic civics. We want them to understand, you were talking about our great country. We want to understand about our country, how it works, why it may be different, and why it's worked for 225 years. And so, almost 250 now, I guess I'm a little behind on my math, excuse me. I was a math teacher. So what we're implementing, and the board has graciously agreed to help us with, is we're implementing really the first in the state of Kentucky translators in every classroom next year. So our teachers will have these little devices here. They're lanyards, they hang around their neck, and while they're teaching, these boxes on the wall will translate to every student so that they will be learning in real time. So you say a sentence, you pause. Sentence structures vary by language. So you may sometimes the direct and the subject and the object are reversed in the order, and adjectives go in different places. But none of they pause and it translates in real time. So that way our students can learn math, social studies, and science in real time while they're learning English with our English learner specialists. It's going to be a game changer for us and really advance those scores. It's the right thing to do. There's also some other benefits. I don't know when you were in school, but at high school you might have taken French or Spanish. I took French. But if you think about that class experience, most likely when you walked into that room, I bet the teacher for about 3 or 4 minutes spoke English. They were setting up the day. Welcome everybody, we're going to do just a reminder, turn in your assignments, we're going to be doing this thing. And then they moved into French instruction, Spanish, German, whatever it was. And then at the end of the day, they probably clarified the expectations in English to make sure you knew what was expected. Well, that's where we don't have the ability to do that, right? So they don't have any ideas. They're discipline issues. They're just sitting there disengaged. This allows us to do that. So this will go in place. And I got to tell you something else. When the alarms go off, back for safety. And we need to, what do? If you don't speak English, there's alarms going off. Do you get in the corner of the room out of sight of the door because it's an active shooter and we're going on lockdown? Do you go under your desk or to a protected room because there's a tornado? Or do you go outside because there's a fire? Oh my goodness. How do you tell 9 8-year-olds to speak 5 different languages that this will do it instantly and communicate to them what they need to do in their language. So it's a safety feature. Yeah.
You had mentioned that when the kids get there, because they can't speak, there's the language barrier, they lose 2 to 3 years.
They can until they learn English, right?
Do they go to the next class though during that? Does a 3rd grader go to the 4th grade even though he hasn't learned anything?
So it's an individual decision, but generally they are oftentimes promoted because students should really, you get like 1 retention, and then after that they kind of age, they need to be with their peers to advance. And we were very careful because as we're assessing them in their native language, they're normally not academically delayed. They know the material, right? And they're learning it as they go. So generally that doesn't happen. It can situationally, but then oftentimes when you retain a student, it increases the likelihood they drop out. So we try to keep them with their peers and accelerate and target learning for them, because when we retain them, it's more likely they're going to drop out of school, and we're trying to avoid that. So good, great question. So anyway, this is the other nice thing about this is it's going to save us some money, because when we have case conferences for special education and the families don't speak English by law, we must have these annual meetings. we have to pull sometimes a Spanish teacher away from the classroom, or we have to pay a very expensive translator. So it'd be more like the United Nations now, where we can have these meetings and translate. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So it's really innovative. It'll all be put in place. All 27 of our schools, we were going to phase it in over 3 years, and the principals were like, well, who are you gonna pick? And so I really appreciated the board's support and said, let's make the investment, do it all at once. So this will be in place. There's another feature to that I'll tell you about later.
What kind of cost involved?
$9 million. $9 million. Made the largest investment I've asked the board to make. However, I'm going to talk about some, what?
Karen said, I didn't think it was that much.
But I'm going to talk about all, that's not the only thing. Here's the, I will tell you, I'm going to flash forward because Karen's going to say, whoa, just be clear. That really isn't the cost for the translator. The translation piece doesn't have a lot of cost. We're doing all new infrastructure and wiring in all of our schools, all new speakers, all right, all new digital messaging in our hallways, all new safety features. These lanyards that you see here, I'll just tell you as a sneak peek. If you squeeze them on the side, emergency alert to the office, no matter where. Playground, classroom, if there's a student with an emotional disability, the teacher's in danger, anything. Emergency response. So what do you put a price tag on that? And so that comes with this. Many of our buildings are starting to age out in the intercom systems. You can't hear them. You just gotta kind of hold a button. So we are replacing all the intercom systems with this new program. And those intercoms cost $50,000 to $75,000 to $100,000 a piece to replace. So we gotta do that anyway. And what we're doing is we're connecting that with this new technology. That allows us to set, you can actually, so imagine in this building, right? You wanna announce something in a part of the building, but not the people that are getting ready to hit the golf. So you can target, right? So you can just make an announcement to the first grade hallway. Or if the south hallway, there's a smell coming and you wanna make an announcement, don't panic, that's somebody burnt popcorn again. But you don't wanna disrupt the whole school. So you've got targeted intercom systems there. There's major safety features there. So when we do need to go into lockdown, it's clear. The messaging now not only goes through the intercoms, but it goes to every student's device in every language. It goes to the messages in the hallway. They may have clocks on them during the day, but it will say, we are in a lockdown. Go to it, it'll have messaging. So all of these pieces are rolled into that cost. And if you divide that by 27, it's $350,000 a school. So, the reality is, and we're using some of our non-instructional dollars for that. We have some one-time monies left over. So it's really a good use. I know there's going to be some shock value with the price, but we always want to be transparent. This is the money. So we can spend that much money on a couple of locker rooms. So we said no, let's pause some of those activities and let's spend a year to do something that's going to benefit all 27 of our schools. Okay, gotta keep going. Empowered workforce. This is just an example. We've implemented stay interviews this year. Stay interviews are significant for a business. It costs more to replace an employee than it does to keep them. It does. So the question we were asking is, do we ever ask the people why? What we do is when someone leaves, they're ready to go. They write this vituperative letter to me and says, I'm leaving and here's why. Right? And it's one perspective. But what about our other 3,700 employees? They're staying. Why? And imagine if they had a chance to tell us ahead of time why they were thinking about leaving, and can we make adjustments to that? So we're doing stay interviews, and we've implemented them this year. I did all the stay interviews for people that were in their 25th or 30th year, I can't remember which. And we put these rooms together, and we invite them to the office, and they come on their speed limit years, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And we sit down with them for 30 to 45 minutes, and we just ask them questions and we listen. And then at the end they get a gift. And this is an example of one of our stay interviews. It's giving us a wealth of data. It's informing our work and it's hopefully keeping our employees. We want our employees to be, to enjoy their jobs, and if there's something we can do to make their jobs better, more productive, or safer, we need to know. And so it's a great way. So that means they'll get that feedback every year. Karen would have been in the 30-year group this year. Maybe I need to interview you. She interviewed.
You'll need more than 30 minutes.
Oh, that. So anyway, keep going. Another example on our empowered workforce. I'm just picking a few. We really targeted increasing our salary. There's been inflationary pressures the last 2 years. and all of this, and I didn't put this data in here, but we have reduced our tax rate by 2 cents, I believe, on the 100. So we're proud of that this year. But nonetheless, we were able to increase our overall salaries and wages by 7.8% in the last 2 years, 3% this year, 4.8% last year. That is the minimum that we've increased, and that's to us significant given our limited funds. Let me keep going because the next piece goes with this. We increased also beginning employees' salaries and wages this year exponentially. One thing we learned was that while we were doing well at the top, our entry-level wages were not competitive with even other school districts in our region. And we did a study on that. We invested. We wanted to know. And when we took the data to our different stakeholders, there's like, yeah, fix it. And so we were able to increase our beginning teacher pay by an additional $3,000 and our beginning hourly wages by $1 an hour. So what that meant was that took our beginning teacher pay from $46,000 to $50,500 this year. So that makes us much more competitive, one of the highest in the region, if not the. There's another district now that's trying to get to $50,501. That's okay, it's good, healthy competition. But nonetheless, this was a significant step. So we did 2 types of raises. We did ATB across the board, 7.8 over 2 years, 3% this year. But we also disproportionately increased beginning wages. So that's not people like me. That's not people like Kathy. That's people that are just starting, that are telling us stories that said, listen, I wouldn't have car insurance if my parents didn't pay for it. I don't want to live in my parents' house when I'm 28, but I am. And so we're trying to boost that up so that they, and by the way, spending money on them and getting them out of the house, being a first-time home buyer makes a difference in this community because they reinvested. So it was the right thing to do. We actually, when we bargained this year, we have a bargaining process that we have to do. And we actually required 2 beginning teachers to be on that committee because we wanted their voice. Because their voice is a little different than people that are closer to retirement like me. So, last thing I'll say is that we implemented, we're one of the first school districts in Kentucky to have implemented a local annuity program. We know the power of saving for retirement, and I think this is a long game, right? It's 30 years out. In 27 to 30 years, I jokingly said, I had coffee at Stevens Elementary this morning with the staff. And at 7:45 this morning, I had a teacher say it's my second year and was asking me about this. And I told her, I said, someday you're gonna remember this conversation. You're not gonna remember my name. You're not gonna remember anything about me. We're gonna say in 28 years, when you've got an additional supplemental annuity of $750,000, right? Which gives you an additional $30,000 in annual income if you do a 4% return. You're gonna thank me. You're not gonna know who I am. You're not gonna know what rocking chair I'm in and where that is. But you're gonna say, that guy was right 28 years ago. So we implemented the first annuity program that our district's ever had, and one of the first in the state. And that does a 1% match, 100% of 1% of their income match for all employees. But the first 5 years of teaching, they get a supplemental $2,000 amount. So what we're doing is, it's sort of like a sign-on bonus. That means that if they're making $50,500, so they put roughly $500 of 1%, we do a 1% match of $500. But we also give them another $2,000. So that means in 5 years, at the age of 27, they've put in $2,500. There's a little bit more than that, $2,600, and we've put in $12,000. So they've got a $15,000 nest egg at the age of 27, and then it's got another 25 years to run for the 59 and a half. Make a big difference for them. Because in the state of Kentucky, there's not layers of retirement for many of our staff and teachers. We don't have Social Security. We do have the state pension. There are some state annuities, but they have to put money into them, and there's not many local. So they kind of have one layer. So we're trying to put in a second layer. Here's the catch. If you're a new employee and you're getting these large matches, it's 5-year vesting. Because we also know that once teachers stay 3 years or more, they're less likely to quit. And going back, it costs more to replace them. So we're trying to keep them. So it's one of our retention strategies. So there's a little selfishness to this, right? Because we know that if we can put enough, and when people see dollar signs on on their 403B statements, for example, and they see on there that they've got $12,500 after 4 years, that it's awful hard to walk away from that. So it keeps them, and once they're here longer, they tend to stay. So that's something we've done, it's pretty innovative. Stakeholder engagement, just got a couple more examples of things we've done. This is all this year, so I can't wait for next year. It's gonna be double this amount. We got a lot more to do, right, Karen? We've been walking this year. We're gonna run, right? Next year. So stakeholder engagement, district-wide streamlined communication, something our families have told us that if you've had kids in our district, you can have 5 or 6 different communication tools based on what schools and teachers and grades and passwords, and it drives our family crazy. So what did I tell Kathy, who led this and did an incredible job? I said, pick one. For the love of, pick one. Pick one, and we're gonna do it K-12. It's gonna save money, site-based. The contracts, of course, are much more expensive when we have 27 of them, and some schools had multiple. Some teachers were using some that weren't quite allowed by the federal government. We wanna make sure we protect our student privacy and data. So we got one system that comes into place next year on August 15th. It also does a lot of other